a really brief introduction today. We're not going to go into too much detail. Then the first topic I'm going to discuss today is how to approach new releases and how I approach new releases specifically. Second topic will be project migration at Archicad 27 and talking through the processes of doing so. This release isn't too bad, actually. It's quite a simple release with regards to rolling this over. Topic 3, design options and project phasing. Throughout the beta testing, and one of the things that I often do is because I sign an NDA with Graphisoft, I haven't kind of publicly come out and spoken about how I've used design options to do project phasing until now, until it's actually been publicly released. So I respect my NDA with Graphisoft to have held off until this point in time, because I believe it's still in place actually during the technology preview as well, but people decided to jump the gun with a few things on that. And also, Todd, who is online, did post a request to talk about Find and Select. And Find and Select isn't something I actually use very often in terms of the presets, but today I thought it'd be really good to cover off on that because it was a request that Todd had made. Cornelius has commented already, seems to work well. Just open up a small Archicad 26 job and Archicad 27 seems to work well. Tomas, hi, I'm an AI assistant helping him. Oh, nothing like AI notes. You obviously screenshots. All right, so Tomas is actually using Otter. I think that's quite a powerful meeting note taking tool. Anyway, in any case, this will be up on YouTube hopefully in the next couple of days. So, just do one quick thing. Perfect. So, on with the show. So, with topic 1, how to approach a new release. So, we're really excited. There's a lot of people that get the opportunity to participate in the beta testing. And then the technology preview this year, Graphisoft made it available for every single Archicad user. So the first thing I would suggest is that when the release cycle begins again for next year for Archicad 28, I'd strongly recommend that you take the time to nominate or essentially put your name down to be able to participate in the technology preview. This actually gives you access to the software 2 months before it actually becomes a formal release. My suggestion is not to turn that into your production software. So Graphisoft strongly recommend not to use that on live projects because it still is in that hunting phase. But the idea being is that by getting early access to it, you can start to do these investigations, perform these investigations that I'm going to talk about today a few months earlier. It makes you prepared, I guess, to roll out into the office, in the final quarter of a year. So the one thing that I always do, and I know this is the kind of cautious side to me, is one of the things that I always do is look on the Graphisoft community portal for any killer bugs. A lot of people will comment on the community about issues that they're facing. Keep an eye out from any comments from your local Graphisoft office or your local reseller, because they will sometimes post comments in regards to killer bugs that are within the software that's been released. So a good example being is that in the past, when the software was released in the June-July period, I would wait until October, November to the first hotfix came out, or the new, what do they call it? I don't even remember, like updates. They call them updates now, was brought forward. And we would then look to essentially roll it out across the office. So it's just a matter of making sure there's no bugs in the software that are known that could potentially impact on your workflows. We've seen some bugs in the past with relation to dimensions dropping off drawings and the like. So they're the type of things you got to be very mindful of and just keeping an eye out. And yes, you want to try and, I personally like to try and get on the new software as soon as possible, because of the the benefits. So there's a lot of things that happen in the background in terms of optimization of code that's going on in the background that Graphisoft are actually working on to increase and improve performance. So my view is that there's going to be some performance enhancements going on in the background that they can't really market that well. It's just something that they're always working on. So that's why I like to try and move over as soon as I can with regards to take into consideration any killer bugs that are around. The next step is of assessing the new features, and that's a process I want to talk through with you today. And then the big question: do I upgrade projects? And there's a kind of a line in the sand, I guess, with some of these. If your project's nearing a deadline, or close out of a major phase or stage in the design and documentation stages, most of the time you probably won't upgrade them. But if it's early on in a project, I always roll them over. I'm interested to know, put in the comments, it'd be great to know what other people are doing with regarding upgrading. I've rolled over a project that's probably 2 to 3 weeks away from finishing into Archicad 27 from 26. We'll wait and see if that's a problem or not shortly, but at this stage, that's what I've done. So what we have now is I've set up a new feature checklist. So we'll just change my screen sharing. Now, if I clicked on this link, it would take me to, actually what we'll do is we'll go and I'll show you how we access this in Archicad. So we go to our help menu and we go to our online resources, and then we click on our Archicad reference guide. So I'm not going to do that because I've already got it saved up already. Because I'm sharing screens of all these different things. I want to make sure the size is right. Let's just make some adjustments first. Then we can go to share a different screen. Sorry for this slight delay. We go here. All right. So what I have set up here already, if we go up to our help guide, you'll see here the new features in Archicad 27. So every time there's a new release, the first thing I do, and I'm fortunate enough to see it in the beta, so we actually get a full list ourselves. But when you get this in the technology preview or in the formal release, what I suggest you do is to go through each one of these. So you can see Graphisoft have outlined all of the different new features that they have. Design options, our attribute management changes, tool and workflow improvements. So you can see here they've got their distance guides, the shirks capabilities, grouping for graphic overrides, etc., etc. So depending upon your business and your practice, each one of these items would have a level of relevance to you. Some would be high, some would be of no benefit whatsoever. So the first thing I do, once I've done that check on the online help for Archicad, is I actually will go through and list out all of these new features in an Excel spreadsheet. And then I will look to identify whether or not something is relevant or not. So yes, it is relevant, or no, it's not. Then the second thing, it's about impact, low, medium, and high. So you first of all want to know, and I can tell you in all honesty, every single release that comes out of Archicad, half of the features that have been implemented, that are documented features, are of zero relevance to me and the way in which I work. And the beauty of the software is that being a global software, the relevance is different for every single practice and how they work. Second to that is impact. So I look at the impact in a couple of ways. Is it going to require a whole lot of new training? Is it going to require my template to be significantly changed and workflows to be significantly changed to enable this feature to be rolled out? into my template and into my projects. Because what you have to think about is when you're running your practice and when you're running your projects, you need to think of what you need to do at the commencement of rolling out a project within your new release. You need to make sure your templates are in place. You need to make sure you've documented your processes so that the team members within your business know exactly how to use it the way you want to use it. And you need to have training completed for each person in your business. So Chris has just raised a comment in the chat and something that he's discovered, which he thought I'd mention for anyone using Teamwork. If you're running BIM Cloud Server on Windows Server OS 2016, you can't upgrade BIM Cloud and you can't use ARCHICAD 27 in Teamwork. You need to upgrade your server operating system to at least 2019. BIM Cloud for us is run off our main offsite server, so it's a fair process and cost for us to work through this. Something to allow for. Yep, it's an interesting process, Teamwork. And the approach that I've had when I was in another practice, rather than working by myself, is we actually had individual machines running within the office to actually perform that task. So we didn't run virtual servers. I know that there's virtual people run virtual partitions in a main server to get that to run. It's definitely not recommended by Graphisoft, hence why we ran separate machines. It makes the process of the issues that Chris is talking about a little bit easier to deal with. And I know that there's a lot of benefits in having your operating systems kind of fixed because they're stable. But sadly, that's where things sometimes update. And I know that what we'll talk about with the migration process a little bit later today will be some of the challenges that are faced with regards to actually going and starting projects in ARCHICAD 17 and the inability to access projects of a certain age. So basically, I will sit down and document all of this. And the reason why I haven't documented this for this conversation today is because I didn't want to provide any bias. For me, saying, this is exactly what I believe is important to me, doesn't really kind of stand true to other people specifically. So I think that you need to think about your own practice and the way in which you work, and how that is important to you. Now, later on in the end of this session, I'll talk about a kind of a special deal that I'm putting together for people over the next 48 hours, essentially. And for those people that take up this special, I actually will provide a copy of this spreadsheet so you can use it as a foundation for your rollover into ARCHICAD 27. But I'm interested to know whether or not anyone else actually sits down and goes through in this much detail within their organization to know how these new features impact you. For example, design options are actually really highly relevant to me, so that's important. The impact I actually think is actually going to be quite low. It's a low to medium, and I'll give you a reason for that. And what we're going to do is when we see our design options part of the presentation shortly, you'll understand that implementing them into your template is probably a challenge in terms of each project's going to be unique, which then means that you're going to need to have to set up views and layout sheets and all of these extras on a project by project basis, rather than having this very large set of things within it. I don't know if I really want to go into all of the different pieces of the puzzle. We've talked through some of those items in previous discussion points, so I think I might park it there. But does anyone in the chat want to comment at all on how they're going with, or how they approach a new release in terms of reviewing the new features? Yep, Catherine says we don't do this, but we need to. Yeah, it's a really kind of methodical way to kind of frame up not only the way in which you look at upgrading your template, but it also frames up the way in which you need to update your process manuals, because you kind of have very prescribed things to look at. And then also helps with your training in terms of, the variety of different ways in which practices train people. A lot of people take the approach of these really nice short, 15-minute sessions that they have over morning tea, and other practices do lunchbox sessions. So, Natalie recommended to wait for the first patch before rolling out a new release office-wide. Natalie, it's really interesting. The approach I took with when all the years at Fulton Trotter was that I'd run a project myself on the new release when it came out in June, but would look to not roll it out until the first update came out around September, October. The new approach that has been taken with the release of the software, they've tried to cover off on as many of the bugs that they could have by having the technology preview, and rolling out the new release date until September. I personally don't want to take any liability. I personally will be running projects on 27 unless killer bugs appear. So going back to my PowerPoint, we will just take a step back. The thing that I want to highlight is that people should go forth with the new release when they feel safe. I take the approach of just making sure I keep a lookout on the Graphisoft community to see what people are reporting, and see how things are positioned in terms of, is there a lot of noise regarding the latest release, and whether or not there's anything that's going wrong. And that's kind of the sad thing is there's no kind of way of going about it. Like, for example, I think in Archicad 25, or 24, I can't remember the exact number, there was a very significant bug that took a couple of updates to be enacted in terms of being fixed. So it's very much it's kind of a sad thing to say, but it's a random answer. Or a random approach, or not random, but it's more of a kind of a calculated approach based upon, testing one project at a time. By having one project in it and not doing it across your whole practice, you're limiting your exposure to things, keeping aware and looking out on the community to see whether or not there's anyone commenting on anything that's actually going wrong. And I guess I'll repeat myself in terms of the sense of watching, listening to your resellers, because the resellers will send out emails when major bugs come out that are dangerous, or, in terms of can have a major impact on your practice. All right, moving on to topic 2, and we are, I think, slightly on late or not. All right, so moving into Archicad 27, and this is what I was kind of touching on slightly before. There's going to be 2 different approaches now, depending upon your practice and how long you've been using Archicad. So if you have projects within your organization that are on release Archicad 16 or earlier, my suggestion would be to actually maintain a copy of Archicad 26 on at least one of your computers, so that you'll be able to migrate projects into Archicad 27 and later. And we'll see that in a second. Then you'll have a process for projects from Archicad 17 and onwards. Okay, so there's 2 processes, and which means my view will be is I'll keep a copy of Archicad 26 on my computer. My actual laptop, this computer's actually got 24, 25, 26, 27. I've actually got 4 releases on here, so that I can kind of keep on top of any files that I work or projects that I work with other people on. But the idea would be is to keep a copy of 26 on a computer. All right. I just said that. It's delightful that I'm ahead of my slide deck. All right, so now we're going to go to our online reference guide. So the number one thing that I see a lot of people do is they often will ignore the online reference guide, or the help menu, or the even when it was downloadable or it was a PDF on your computer. This document really should be able to answer half of the questions that you may have about the software, or most of them. I'll just see whether or not there was another page. Not cool. All right, so I'll go back in and I will go into our Archicad help. So migrating. So after our new features section, after the new features section, I actually got a guide with regards to migrating to Archicad 27. So you'll see here a really good list here of items that are really mission critical when you roll over a project from a previous release. What you'll see here, that there are a couple of items that you need to consider, and when we're talking about a project in Archicad 26, what you'll see is if you had any favorites or elements within Archicad that were MEP elements, when you brought them in from 26, they would go missing. So that's kind of that's probably the biggest issue I think I've found in rolling things over. Also migrating a library over from, or migrating a project over from Archicad 26 to 27, a few of my doors actually disappeared because they weren't rolled over into 27. Then we have the teamwork projects and translators. Now, once again, these are all dependent upon your current template and your current workflows, but the idea would be, prior to starting a project, or prior to migrating a project over into Archicad 27, or even if you're on 26, the positive thing is that this section is actually relevant in every single reference guide, or in the modern ones anyway. But if you have a project from a previous release, what you then will need to do is to see the items that have check marks against them. And then you'll see here that they actually have a clickable item. So what we're going to do is go and click on our MEP elements. So you can see here all of the different approaches, or the issues that you need to, I guess, review before you upgrade a project into the new release that you're wanting to work on. So you can see here with the MEP modeler, and 27's been entirely renewed in terms of interface, modeling, and technology. So it's not compatible with any of the old MEP elements. So the old items will come across as ordinary GDL objects, and you can attach the new routes to the GDL objects, and if you back save, but the other ones will disappear. So that's for people that are doing services and find an MEP, they're doing a lot of MEP work in your models. If there's a bug that you need to push the project back from Archicad 27 to 26, you may find that those elements will disappear. Now, I don't know if there's really anyone that does that on this chat today, but one of the things to think about with those scenarios is that a workaround for that would be is that if you actually had those issues, the elements that you'd model in Archicad 27 that were the MEP elements that would disappear, turn them on as a model, and basically save it out as an IFC. Then you could then merge that IFC into your Archicad 26 file to get you out of trouble. Libraries is always the biggest challenges I face, and then Chris was talking about the challenges of obviously teamwork, which I think is worthwhile having a look at today as well. But you can see here there's a reasonably detailed guide in explaining how to work through the library migration, and the real important thing with this is that you try and maintain and load as few libraries as you need to deliver a project. The more libraries you load up into a project, the slower the load time will be. So even though your libraries are local to your C drive on your computer, even with teamwork, except for the first time you open a teamwork file, they're located on your BIM server. Then your computer downloads that first load, will come directly from the BIM server onto your C drive, and then your load times will be similar to opening a local project. But that's the kind of things I think that are really important to look through. Be interesting to see here, Chris, whether or not they have anything with regards to. They don't have anything in regards to the operating system on here. I'm going to guess that there's another section specifically on the BIM cloud and how it's installed. Oddly enough, it's they don't have anything in here relevant to that, which is kind of disappointing, really, isn't it? Because that's where most people are going to look at. But key thing being, we talked about the checklist, so we want to check the new features off. Second piece of the puzzle we want to do is we want to see what it's like to migrate things across from ARCHICAD 26 or earlier. And this is what you need to do every single new release. And the really important thing is that this also helps with migrating your template over from a previous release. So that's kind of another thing that you need to seriously consider when you're migrating over into the new release, in terms of understanding the pieces of the puzzle and what are the challenges that you're going to face. Now, if anyone wants to have a chat about how they could do that or need help with that, feel free to reach out. We can talk through it and help you do so. Now on to topic 3. Design options. Now, I didn't obviously cover off on all the other things with regards to migrating over to ARCHICAD 27, but I might try and do that while we're in this this first ARCHICAD file. So there's a few things that you need to consider or understand with regards to design options. And this is the limitations within the actual tool itself. Now, once again, I highly recommend that you go into the reference guide and read through not just the new feature information on design options, but actually go through and read the detailed workflows within the online reference guide. That will be of great benefit to you. So the one thing to note, and this is around the limitations and the methodology of which it works, a single design option is visible out of a design option set at any one time. So that's the one thing that you need to remember, because remembering that design options were created not for project phasing. They were designed specifically to enable a series of options to be picked or modeled and then changed in and out to put in front of the design team, your clients, etc., and pick them from it. So that's the kind of fundamental thing to remember with design options and limitations. So if you're wanting to use design options for project phasing, you need to sit down, and it's kind of that concept of a failure to plan is a plan to fail. But you need to consider all the different phases, including demolition, and because they all need to be within their own design option set. And you'll see that in a second with this example that I'm going to show you. It's quite interesting how you have to approach it. So let's move on to a demo in the actual file itself, and we will jump across into here. So the reason why I find phasing or project staging so important is because I have for nearly 2 decades worked on education projects, and specifically new schools get built over 5 to 10 stages, which I can tell you the workflows that we used to use for our development approvals when we're submitting them into local authorities were to essentially set up site plans on worksheets and just copy and paste and create 10 stages in 2D. and it was, what can I say, very lazy. It meant that we were able to do something to achieve the task, and then we had our 3D models all on separate layers for each individual stage. There's obviously other workflows with regards to staging that are really important to someone. And I'm seeing a few comments and people are all resolving things in the chat. So that's cool. All right. Thankfully, it's all in regards to that one comment that Roderick's made with regards to favorites or model elements and stuff. But anyway, all right. So one of the things that I find really important is obviously we've got our, before I actually go into this, actually I'll talk about setting up your work environments. So I sit down at a new release, and we'll sit down and sit down and go through the challenges of building a work environment from scratch. So what I will do, and at the moment I'm on a 46 or 49 inch wide screen, hence why I only show the actual the actual software screen itself, in terms of, rather than the whole screen, because otherwise it will get really small for most people. But what I will do, and I did this the other day on a laptop, I sat down on a laptop and had my Archicad 26 template open and Archicad 27 out of the box, and sat down and went through all of these individual settings. And I went through and I manually changed all of these up. Now, yes, it took me maybe 20 minutes to do this, to go through and match out and marry out all of these things of all the settings that I have. And yes, I could have taken the approach of copying or importing settings in and essentially putting them in place. The challenges of the import process, which I find really challenging, is that if there are new features, and where are they buried? I keep forgetting where they are. They're in here somewhere. The experimental features. And I know this is something where, here we go. So some of these I have turned off. Now each new release bring in new features, which won't be, may automatically be selected or may not be selected. So by going through each of these, you're making a informed decision as to whether you want things to be turned on or off. So for example, the new physical base render I've turned off because of my thoughts on not actually having that on as part of that. The thing that can be a problem is keyboard shortcuts. Once again, making sure that you almost have to rebuild them from scratch, or you can bring them in, import your old version and adjust them as suited. But you'll see that my work environment is completely different to that of every single other person that uses Archicad. Call me unique. I don't know whether it's a left-handed thing in me, but I've always found it easier to read from the left-hand side of the screen than on the right. So hence my view map, and that is all based on the left-hand side. But and also I don't use the out-of-the-box toolboxes, so I actually build palettes myself, or sorry, not palettes, so the other version. What's the magic other version we call them? Windows toolbars. So I actually build my own toolbars for each new release, and the reason why you don't want to try and bring in, and this is where it's most painful, creating new toolbars from scratch. Once again, this takes about 5-10 minutes to do, but overall you're talking half an hour to update all of these. It'd be interesting to know what other people's thoughts are on upgrading it, but that's my approach. I sat down in 1 hour and fully set up my whole work environment for 27. Once again, when you're working by yourself, an hour is quite a lot, but in a bigger practice in terms of getting this all set up so you can roll it out across your organization, it's definitely something that has significant value. All right, now moving back, now that I digress off of things, moving back to staging. So what I've used in this example is to set up essentially all of these items to show them what the construction version is. So for example, I've got stage 1 new, that could be a new build. In stage 1, I want to do some demolition work to actually demolish some existing site features. And then also in stage 1, that's built new. In stage 3, I'm going to demo that construction. Stage 1, new build. Stage 2, going to demolish something. Then stage 2, I've got some new construction. Stage 3, new. And then stage 3, demo, because I might be taking out some existing trees or something and the like. So if you imagine that this isn't text, but on a complex site, it could be all of these different elements that you need to place into your model. All of these would be, built in the first file in terms of the original file, in terms of stage 1 as to how you'd normally model. But what you'd need to then consider is, this one here on the renovation filter, and this is where the renovation filter may actually become redundant in this workflow, because you're using the design options to actually create all this phasing. So all of those would get modeled in stage 1, and then you're applying a filter, essentially a design option filter again to each of those items. Now in this instance, nothing is actually in the main model. So let's talk through the strategy as to how this all works. And we've got our design options. So I'll just move, I can't move that one across, so that should sit there. So what we have here are essentially the parents. So our design option sets are at the top. Remembering, if I was to create a new design option under here, let's just call this stage 1 demo test. Okay. I've done that. Now, the problem we have here is that I can't turn around and put all of my stage 1s into the same option set, right? Design option set. So if I click on this, it'll switch out. So therefore, every permutation that you have within your project on your site with all your staging, and it could be really, really simple. If you have a really simple master plan you're trying to do, it could just be stage 1 new, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, stage 5. But you have to think of all of the different options that you could come up with. Then over on this left-hand side, we have design option combinations. So this becomes an additional view setting that you need to add to your projects. First of all, you have main model, which is just elements that are part of the main model. And you'll see in design options workflows that if someone clicks on this, I have to go up to custom, someone clicks on this, I can take this option and accept and merge into the main model. This workflow, we do not have a main model. So that's the key thing to remember with this, what can we say, bespoke way of using Archicad's new features, right? So right here with our design options combination, stage 1 demo, we can see here that I can turn on and off either of these design options on the right hand side. So with stage 1 new, you can see here that the demo has already occurred on stage 1. Then we have stage 1 new, stage 1 or stage 2 demo, stage 3 demo, stage 2 demo, and new. So all of those are turned on. Then we have stage 2 demo, and those 3 are still on. And I'll show you a methodology I'll put in place to enable demolition to work. Stage 2 new. So you can see here all of the things that are built that are still existing are in place. Then you can see stage 3 demo has appeared and stage 3 new, which then we just have in place stage 1 new, stage 2 new, stage 3 new. So then we have, obviously that's accessed via that palette, but then we obviously just have our little design options workflow here, so we can attach things onto things. Now, as I said previously, we have a scenario here where we have to have demo. Now, how have I achieved this? So we go into our graphic overrides, and you can see here that I've created a new set of overrides, stage 1 demo, stage 2 demo, and stage 3 demo. Now the reason for this, and we'll just go into stage 2 demo, is because we have a criteria that identifies things where the design option set is this specific item. Now, we could, because at this stage you can do only is and is not, you can't do wildcards in the sense of saying design option set contains demo. So hence why we need the additional items here. And I've got my overrides in place similar to how I would have my elements to be demolished. So you can see here, they're pretty much identical in their approach. That's how I've set them up. So therefore, that's how we're getting a view with this appearing like this. And we'll just go to, what are we going to do here? Get that over onto 2D. We'll go back to stage 1 demo. We want to go to stage 1 demo. So you can see here that's in 2D. That's appearing as demolished, and that is as well. So therefore, we can actually use the approach of using design options. Now, moving through those settings, we've had to create views. So now we go into our view settings, and you'll see here now that we also have in place design options as a new kind of tab within our view settings. And what I've done is I've had to create one, well, based upon the different stages I have in place, I've created those design options settings that are applied to each individual view. So as I talked about before, what this means is that no longer, well, unless you have a very specific way of working on certain projects where you have stages on all of your projects, to actually implement this into your template would be quite time consuming because you have to undo it and redo it again. Now, what this then rolls over to is by all of these different views that you're creating based upon different design options, you then would need to create folders probably, and then those folders, and then all the different layout sheets to suit all of these different design options that you're putting in place or staging. So you can see here, and I've just set up these 6 views to kind of demonstrate how this can work. You can see here now, after that, now that stage 1's been demolished, I then bring on board my 3 parts of new construction. Then before I build stage 2, I need to demolish this part of stage 1, which was a mistake. I shouldn't have built it in the first place. Then we build stage 2 new. Then we have stage 3 demo. And then we have stage 3 new. So basically it's a workflow, I guess, that I've set up to, I guess, prove that we can use design options to achieving staging. But once again, what it does is it requires you to understand how all of this works. Now, one thing I did skip over, which is very rude of me, is I've now selected one of these items, and we can go into here. I think this is how we can do it. Yes, design options. So I've now applied it to a design option status. So we pick which one it is based on over here. I believe also there was some other trick that I've forgotten. There we go as well. We can relink, or we can link them to something, but actually, sorry, relink. So what at the moment we have here, stage 1 new. I'll just push this to stage 3 new and hit relink. Then what will happen is if we go to stage 1, oh, that's interesting. I thought that would have deleted it. Stage 3 new. There we go. Sorry, it is there. So we have stage 3 new. Stage 3 new. Where are you? There we go. So you can see here it's pushed over. Now I want to push that back to stage 1 new. Relink. So we're using that relink function. Now what we're going to find is it will actually work again. So it goes back onto its correctly assigned design option or phasing. Any questions from anyone with regards to that? It's a lot to take in, but it's something that I got excited about as soon as James Badcock from Graphisoft shared design options on a presentation. I set straight away into putting this together and because I know it solves a lot of problems for me with regards to project staging and setup. All right. No comments in the chat. So what we will do is we will go back over here. Cornelius, considering the effort involved in setting up the options and are design options worth using for project staging? I probably should have shared a project with you which I would use it on. Personally, I actually think it's quite valuable. One thing I actually didn't show, which I probably should have showed or shown, is the ability to schedule elements based upon that's another really important feature actually that, it's difficult when you're playing with text, right? But if we were to come into our element schedules, and here we'll just do test, and this one is going to be phasing. What we can actually set up things based upon their design option set. So it's not just about the modeling and the output of the modeling. It also can set up other scheduling opportunities so that you're actually breaking up your model and the data associated with it. So, for example, you'd be able to create schedules that are headlined for each stage. Would work really well for car parking, because car parking is always a pain on projects. Toilet counts. Toilet counts for major schools, for example, where you need to make sure you have enough toilets for the students in each stage. That's actually really valuable. So there are benefits over and above just the kind of modeling that you can gain from it. And you can kind of get excited by those opportunities as well. All right, let's move on. So yeah, there are some other things, Cornelius, that I think that add value to the process and being able to be a little bit more granular in a sense, and it does take a little bit of effort, but at the same time, I don't think the complexities of most projects would be as crazy as what I've just set up. It's kind of like a 3-stage with 3 sets of construction, 3 sets of demolition, items that are part of one stage being demolished. It does happen, but it's not normally as crazy as I'm presenting it. I guess it's just to try and show how crazy it can be. All right, topic 4. And this is a topic that was raised by Todd. Find and select. And obviously, I actually use it quite often, as it's a fast way to select elements in 2D and in 3D. But I'm actually really, really lazy when it comes to actually using the tool as well as it could be used. And I say that in the sense that I personally don't use this tool as it's been designed. So for those that can't see my shortcuts, on a PC, Control F, out of the box shortcuts, I will always sit here, click on an element, I'll click on an element over here, and it'll bring up wall, and I might want to bring up the building material, and I might want to bring up the composite name. and I will click on that. So I will do this every single time, right? And there's actually a smarter way of doing this. Now, the reason I guess why I've never gone to the extent of using this tool to its full functionality is because I think my find and select processes are too random. And I guess it'd be interesting to hear from Todd and his perspectives as to why this is something that's of really strong interest to him. But what we can do is with find and select, we can actually come up with a criteria set of things that we want to find and select on our projects. It could actually be used quite powerfully for auditing, and then probably, I have to admit I haven't sat down and thought too heavily about how we could use this quite a powerful tool for finding things. So, for example, what was a building material or surface? Get our mouse, find our mouse on our screen. We could find our generic, right? And this is just an item we could set up. Now, the methodologies I have for working in Archicad, I have two workflows. I have like an LOD 200 workflow where I have generic building materials, like my generic proposed and my generic existing. Then I have specific LOD 300 building materials that reflect exactly how I am going to be in terms of specification. So I could use that to find generic elements and set up like a whole series of audits within here. But the idea is, and I did this, I put this together yesterday. So I want to find all of my exterior walls. So I found those, and there might be a reason for wanting to find those exterior walls. It might have something to do with certain settings that I have in place about them being exterior, external. Don't bring in files from older sections. They bring in the old classification systems, which we don't want to do. But other things that you might want to do, and which I've tested, and I guess what we can do is we can set one of these up. So right now, what could we want to find? Maybe I want to find, let's find something. Let's find all my fence palings. So I have my really unique fence. I want to not worry about its position. I would like to look at the layer name that it is on. Finish screen. And I want to make sure that it's the length, nominal length. No, that's the wrong one. That's my Kobe one. Let's see if this actually works, because it's probably pulling up things that I don't want it to. 1100. And what we could do is we can go less than. See how this generates and breaks. So this could be the way I want to find, and this could be really important. I can click on this arrow right here and store. So this one here could be my fence posts short. So Natalie asked the question, can criteria sets be saved within the template file? So what we can see here, yes, they say that their home is where you create them in their first instance. So for example, I just created this in this file. Then I have the ability via the little triangle here in terms of managing it. I can export, rename, delete, but I can also import. So ideally, you would create them in your template and then roll them out on every single project as an audit set. And for me, I think that's something that I will look to do moving into the future. I'm going to sit down and go, okay, well, what are the things I'm going to do to audit my projects? Some of the things that I do using schedules right now, what can I do that can be really quick for a find and select scenario? And therefore in your template, you can create them in there. And then what you might do is you might actually create several of these in an individual project, which then means you can export them out of your project and then import them into your project. So I have a gut feel you could build a full XML file of all of these and actually bring them all out. Or you can actually come on, behave yourself. Remove. See if we can take, no, it won't do it. You can't do them all. I thought you could be able to bring them all out. But yeah, so from my perspective, I've been lazy. I really should have engaged in this feature more often. I think it's actually, Todd did post a comment. I was asking because it seems to have the potential for great power and control, but he has also not invested the time to know what they were. Be a fast way to select multiple items without grouping. 100%. The challenge comes down to that ability of knowing what presets you want, so you don't end up with 300 of these going down the screen. And then what we might find in the future is, Graphisoft to put folders in everywhere right now. They've got folders in everywhere for all of the attributes. If people start getting excited with my criteria sets and building them out, and people start embracing this as a really powerful feature, because I think it is. It's just that I've been really lazy with it as well, and haven't really thought of it because of how quick and easy it is to actually get in here and create them, and because it feels kind of random on every single project. I've never really kind of pushed it that much. So yeah, it's something that I think that could be investigated more by people. And maybe the answer is to come up with a few workflows that enable it. But yeah, it's quite a cool thing to talk about. So Roderick, obviously you've posted a topic for the future, and there's been obviously some comments on there. That could be something that we could definitely work through and discuss in the future. I think I've also seen a pop-up approach on my email, on my phone, saying that someone's posted into the Airtable. So that's great to see that we've got people posting future topics in there as well. So thank you very much for that. It means that we can have some exciting conversations that are actually relevant to people and what they need. So we've gone through Find and Select. I actually think it's something that I've been lazy, and Todd, same here, mate. I've been very lazy and not actually embracing that feature. But I think that, some simple checks and measures, you could set up some very quick Find and Select sets that mean that you can find things that you need to fix on your model, things that are undefined, like, structural function. If you're working in IFC, what are the items that are undefined? So you can go and find and select them quickly. You could then kind of filter them further by other settings. Once again, moving over to the suggestion with regards to favorites, I think is really, really important. If everyone says their favorites correctly and use favorites when they use Archicad, there's a good chance that you won't actually have half of these issues to need to use Find and Select as much as possible. But we've still got to find those kind of rogue modeling or text or dimensions or lines that are on our projects. So for those out there that want to have add any comments with regards to topics for the future, please put them up. For those that want to, for those that are actually kind of wanting to don't have access to that QR code for the topics to the Airtable, just drop it in the chat right now. Otherwise, I will see you in a month's time. So keep going well, guys. See you later.